channel. My name is Jasmine. If you're new here, I am an international medical graduate from the University of the Philippines College of Medicine, and this July I am starting my preliminary year in general surgery. And so I'm planning on applying again in the next cycle for OBGYN. And if you want to stay along with me for the ride, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel. And otherwise, I hope you enjoy this video. All right, so what is this video going to be about? So this video is going to be about how to maximize part-time jobs as an IMG. And so obviously I'm going to be speaking from my own experience, and other people's experiences might be different. But this is going to be specific to what I do here at UCLA as a clinical research coordinator and what I've done, the other part-time job that I did here at UCLA last summer. So we'll get started with tip number 1. And this is applicable if you're still studying for your steps or just studying in general, just to keep yourself up to date with whatever field that you want to get into as an IMG, as an aspiring resident here in the United States. So whether that's IM, general surgery, pediatrics, OBGYN, you'd still want to keep up with your studies, at least little by little each day, and just so that you don't get rusty with the material, even if you're not studying for any big exam. So the first tip is maximizing use of the spaces that are available to you. So office space, cafes that are around, libraries, if you have access to a library at your workplace. Definitely make use of these spaces so that you have an extra study space aside from your desk at home or your apartment or wherever that you can use to kind of change up the pace, because especially if you're studying for something like USMLE Step 1, Step 2, or Step 3, it can get quite monotonous staying at your own desk at home. And so it would be nice if you had like a different place. Oh my god, I'm sorry if you're hearing that, but I think they're trying to like load the dumpsters outside, and I hope that's not too distracting. But anyways, yeah, so as I was saying, it's good to have a separate space that you can potentially go to, whether it's on the weekends or staying late during a work day, just to like change up the pace, change up the location of where you usually study. Tip number 2, learning new skills. And so this depends on which part-time job you end up getting. And there's an array of part-time jobs that IMGs, especially US IMGs, are able to obtain. And so I made a video of what sorts of jobs are, available to us as US IMGs. I will link that up in the eye above, and I hope you find that video to be useful. So basically, just a quick rundown, you can do research coordinator, like what I'm doing, or you could do medical assistants, you can do research fellowships, you could also apply for those. And there's just so many things that we can do as part-time jobs, and good for earning an extra bit of income to help you pay for your applications, and also just getting job experience. And so back to the main point of this tip is learning new skills. So whatever job you end up having prior to landing your residency position, there's going to be some skills that you may not have had or learned before, simply because maybe you've been in school all this time like myself, and so you haven't had a chance to really learn other skills like office work, for example. And so those soft skills, I consider them soft skills, even though like these are things that people really do for a living that aren't doctors. But like, as someone who's aspiring to be a physician, these skills, you might not use them on the day-to-day as a physician, but it's still important to know how to do these things. So things like faxing documents, things like sending professional emails, working the copy machine or whatever. Even something as simple as working a coffee machine would be a soft skill to learn, that will be helpful potentially as a physician in the future. And so make the most of it by getting really good at these skills. And then another thing that I was able to learn is how like the corporate world, at least the corporate research world, works a little bit. And so that's also kind of a valuable skill, especially if you're interested in doing clinical research with your practice in the future. All right, so next is tip number 3. So tip number 3 is having the opportunity to teach or practice your teaching skills. And I was lucky that I had a research mentor from my undergrad days at UCLA who had a introductory research, summer research program for undergraduate students at UCLA. And basically it's like a 6-week course that these students take during the summer quarter, and they basically just learn the basics of how to do basic science research. And so I was able to TA for this class, and there was a lab instructor, there was my mentor who was kind of their classroom instructor, and then there was me who was kind of the lab assistant / lab TA as well. And that was a really good opportunity because it really helped me learn how to communicate with the younger generation, and as well as, you know, really getting to teach them the things that I know from basic science and my experiences as an undergraduate researcher myself. And then even at work, like opportunities to teach arise whenever we have like a new employee join our team, and it's my job to kind of, you know, teach them the ropes, teach them how things work in the office and all that stuff. And so these are still very good opportunities to learn the skill of teaching, because not everybody is a good teacher. And so the more you practice, or naturally a good teacher rather, and so the more you practice the skill of teaching, the better you get at it. And then hopefully in the future, when you do have to teach medical students, younger residents, junior doctors and what have you, you'll be able to have the skill of teaching efficiently and effectively down pat. All right, so that's tip number 3, and then moving on to tip number 4. So I was able to attend, thankfully, the conferences that were held here at UCLA, and I learned about these conferences through my work email, and they're free to join most of the time. And so there's been a number of conferences that I was really interested in, and there was 2 conferences I think that I just wasn't able to join because it just didn't fit in my schedule. And usually these conferences happen on a Saturday, so you'd have to like sacrifice a Saturday of your life to go to these conferences. But I think it's very valuable because these conferences give you a chance to network. They give you a chance to learn more about like whatever topic the conference is about. And sometimes they have snacks and food, and that's always a plus. And so just to name a few of the conferences that I took advantage of in my past year working here at UCLA, the first one that I attended was the Road to Residency conference, and this was through the through the David Geffen School of Medicine, and it was sent to basically all the David Geffen School of Medicine employees, and I am one. So I was able to attend this as an IMG, and yeah, they just let me in. I got in for free, and it was nice. And then the second conference that I attended was the Global Health Retreat, and this was sent to the Department of Medicine, and I was able to also attend this one for free. And it was also a very eye-opening conference, and they also had free food. And then so the next conferences that I was able to attend, there was like a research day for the Department of Medicine, there was the poster day for the research class that I was a TA in, as well as recently a global surgery conference, but that was virtually. It was more like a grand rounds kind of thing. And so that brings me to my next tip, which is getting links to grand rounds through different departments here on campus. And these are like Zoom links. They happen during the lunch hour usually, and they are very interesting topics. And there's also a library available to me, at least here on campus, using my work email, of previous grand rounds topics, and I could just like click and watch topics that I'm interested in learning more about. And so that's tip number 5. And then tip number 6. So UCLA has a workout program. It's called BISEP, and it's the Bruin Health Initiative program, and it's basically like a 12-week workout program outside on the track with a group, and we have like an instructor, and it's timed at different times during the day. And so I chose the lunch hour schedule, and so instead of doing my lunch in the office, I would go on campus and do the workout and then come back and then have my lunch as I work. And so that was a really fun time, and I highly recommend, if your workplace has something similar, to take advantage of it, especially if it's free. Tip number 7 is employee swag or merch that they give you as tokens of appreciation. UCLA is very good about doing that, especially milestones that you reach. So they gave me one at the 3-month mark, the 6-month mark, and the 9-month mark, and then I think the 12-month mark as well, but I haven't reached the 12-month mark at this point yet, and I don't think I will, unfortunately. But you know, if your workplace has something like this too, that's also really nice. Just whatever swag that they have available for you, take advantage of it. You know, if it's free, it might as well go to you instead of going to a landfill somewhere, and then you can make use of it. All right, so the next tip is tip number 8, and this is for my fellow introverts that tend to get stuck in their head and kind of forget how to interact with other people. And so being around other people and having some busy work to kind of engage you, to get you out of your head, to, you know, keep you from going stir crazy with cabin fever, I think that's a very big plus of having a part-time job, because the road to residency, especially as an IMG, can get very, very lonely. And just having that social interaction, whether it's, you know, like a few hours at work, is a huge difference to your mental state. And I could attest to this as someone who spent like the first half of my US residency journey, or applying to the US residency, all alone in my apartment. And I did have my husband, but my husband had work, and my cats helped a lot. But you know, human interaction is also very different from just, you know, hanging around your pets all the time, even if you're an introvert. And so next tip is related to applying to residency. The last 2 tips rather are related to applying to residency. And so tip number 9 is research projects. And so depending on what part-time job you get, again, if you do a medical assistant position, you might not get a chance to do research. But if you do like a clinical research coordinator position or a research fellowship, then you definitely get a chance to work on research projects, potentially have a poster made, potentially have a publication. And so these are things that would look amazing on your CV as you're applying to residency. And then lastly, the last point, tip number 10, is potential letter of recommendation. And so obviously this is dependent on how well you do as an employee, how well you build a rapport with your superiors. So if your boss that you're working for is an attending physician or whatever, or they're a professor or something, you can definitely ask them for a letter of recommendation, but only if you know, did the work and have that merit. So yeah, I hope these tips are super helpful. I know I kind of like sped through all of them. And so if you have any questions for me, feel free to put them in the comments down below, and I will try my best to respond. And again, if you have any questions about how to get a job as an IMG, especially if you're a US IMG, I highly recommend watching my video. Again, it's linked up here. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one. I will see you in the next one. Bye.